While we're getting set up, everybody knows who officially declared the combined federal campaign, right? It was President John F. Kennedy. Okay. And the night before he died, he spoke to a crowd. Where? Here, in this ballroom, 2,000 people. So the guy who created spoke where you're at just a few years earlier. It's only appropriate that we're here today, right? So enjoy the rest of the show in spite of the next presentation. My name's Lou Nisler. I'm the Executive Director of CFC NCA. This is John Lloyd. He will be talking to you intelligently about technology in just a little bit. I want to spend a couple minutes just introducing the Volunteer Bulletin Board and setting the stage for the technical side of this. So the whole program deserves a little bit of appreciation before we get started. I want to acknowledge that Cal Stein spent about 3 years working on this concept and badgering everybody he could on the concept of a volunteer bulletin board. He did it during the 50th, he did it after the 50th, he may have done it before the 50th, but he believed that there was a need for this program. I also want to acknowledge that the local federal coordinating committee did a wonderful job of tasking us with answering a tremendous amount of questions before we could move it forward to OPM. And I want to thank OPM for accepting this as a pilot program and acknowledging that it met enough of the needs that we should go forward. I believe it's also fair to specifically thank the 6 pilots in this program, as well as the software company who provided the program, Nexus. They did it during the campaign, not before or after, and we appreciate that. So, if I could hit the... There's a lot that goes into the detail of why. But before I go too far, I want to specifically talk about... I want to talk specifically about the pieces that brought this all together for us. We talked with Cal several times, Cal being the foundation head, also the president of Earthshare. But over the last couple years, we've also heard OPM talk specifically about finding other programs that made a difference to the prospective donors. And this Volunteer Bulletin Board does address a piece of that. Certainly not all of it, but addresses enough of it to get a group of people, some potential donors, to see what a charity's all about. So if we pilot the program that adds some value during the reinvention of the CFC, we've all talked about what the reinvention might do in a less than positive way. But if we look at the glass as half full, OPM, the local LFCC, 6 pilots have committed themselves to try something new as a way to increase or at least keep at bay the participation level of the campaign. So the way it works real quickly, and John will get into some very specific detail, the opportunities are posted with the assumption that you would volunteer for local events. This is not designed for charities who are looking for fundraising events. Critical to this is that we're trying to get people to do things with charities that are really volunteer activities, to find out what's really happening inside that charity that they may love, or their parents may have loved, or that they think they want to learn more about. It's critical that the charities understand that this is not about a fundraising activity. Okay. So what we've got today is an opportunity to expand a little bit of thinking to connect the dots. I'll use Keith's term from last year, to invite in a group of potential donors who cannot participate at the same level as the participants who've been federal employees for a long time. They may not have the money, they may not have the interest, but for the charity, it introduces an opportunity to show your best foot forward to a group of people who may just in fact impact not only your charity, but the entire combined federal campaign for the next many years. So with that, I'll turn it over to John Lloyd, and we'll answer questions at the end. Thank you.
I too would like to thank OPM and Nexus and the LFCC and Cal and everybody who shepherded this project to the point it's at right now. Basically what we're going to look at is a series of slides that are screenshots of the software that was written and beta tested by 6 different campaigns. And we'll get into the launch at the very end. This is an analog clicker, and you just go like this, and there you go. This is IT solution. So there are 3 constituencies in this volunteer bulletin board system. There are the potential federal volunteers. There are the charities who are creating the volunteer opportunities and submitting them for approval. And then there are the administrators who are looking at the volunteer opportunities, making sure they conform to the guidelines that we wrote in advance of writing the software, duration, appropriateness, so on and so forth, and approving the volunteer opportunities so that they show up on a website where people can browse them and subscribe to them. It's nice. So from the charity point of view, you enter the system and you select the charities for which you have the rights to administer opportunities. So that might be an individual charity claiming their charity name, taking the first one off the list, Canines for Warriors. Or you might be a federation, and you might be claiming administrative rights for multiple charities for which you want to create events. You, as a charity, go in and complete a profile, say who you are, what your email address is, and so on. And then you fill out some information about the opportunity that you want to submit. This is the name of the event, stream cleanup of the Potomac, a description of the event, in the center where the event is going to be held, the address, as well as a contact name. And in this stage of the pilot, you can add more than one contact. Then we get into a series of questions about the things that are going to go on during the charity event. We saw food. Will it be served or not? Materials that you need, gloves, boots, hats, so on and so forth. I can't read that. Maybe I put on my glasses. No. I'm sorry. Parking. And lastly, thank you. So the idea is to provide descriptors here that your volunteer might find useful. And we got some feedback in advance of writing the software from organizations that already run similar types of bulletin boards. And that is that the more information you put here, the higher the quality of the information, the more your volunteer will know about the opportunity and the more likely it is that they'll participate. Vagueness is the kiss of death, in other words. So here's an example of some things filled out. Event will be held rain or shine, parking the shopping center parking lot across from 123 Main Street, so on and so forth. So when you've completed the opportunity, you submit it. Clicker didn't work. There we go. And in the case of the pilot, we front-ended it with any of the pilot members being able to requiring them to say which campaign they were in. Ultimately, this will be done through a user login. When you log in, you'll have your campaign. There won't be any selection here. But for pilot purposes, this is how we designed the front end. The charity will get notification that the opportunity has been submitted, and so will the administrator. So this is an example of an email that a PCFO would get once a charity posted the opportunity. They would then know they have to do an editorial review of the opportunity and approve it or comment on it or decline it. This is another one of the screens where you go in to view the opportunities that have been submitted by the charities. They're pending opportunities, opportunities under review, those that have been approved, and those that have been declined. Here's an example of some pending opportunities. And this is what one looks like from an editorial point of view. We've got a map, a description, click, event address. There's a physical effort rating on a scale of 1 to 5, whether or not food will be provided, parking, supplies and materials needed, instructions, and then charity contact information. So let's go back. So as a reviewer, you can approve it, you can comment on it, or you can decline it because it doesn't meet the criteria. Let's look at comments for a minute. This is just an area at the bottom where you can keep a running log of anything having to do with the opportunity, especially if you choose to decline it. And I wrote, for humor's sake, this one sounds like a hoax. So I was in the process of declining this one because it didn't meet the criteria. So this is another screenshot of what we see. Opportunities, again, we're in the administrator PCFO persona, and we're looking at things in process. That's stuff that's been in pending, under review, and approved. Once it's approved, it then becomes available to the volunteer to see. This is the same thing, more of the same. So this site and its technology is embeddable. For those of you who use Nexus, there's certain parts and pieces of Nexus that you can embed into your own website. The same is true here. As an administrator, you'll be able to take a snippet of code and put this volunteer functionality into your website. From an account management point of view, if people register or charity contacts register, you have the ability to turn them off if there's something going wrong, malfeasance or duplicate accounts, or someone has applied for charities that they don't actually have the rights to administer. As a PCFO, you can go in and manage those accounts, do the famous password reset, and enable and disable. As a donor, you're able to register in the system, and I believe registering is also optional as it now stands. So if you register, you can come back and see your opportunities. If you want to be a little more anonymous, we'll see a screen in a minute that addresses that. So this is what a donor would see. It's an acknowledgement of the volunteer registration. And then this would be a list that you would see for your campaign area, for your geography. As a volunteer, you would see the opportunities, be able to browse them, and if there was a long list, you can search with a variety of search terms. This looks similar to what we saw in the area where you approve the events as an administrator, but this is now what the donor is seeing, or the volunteer is seeing, excuse me, the potential donor. Details of the event. And again, with the same metadata about the volunteer opportunity, and then a nice big clear button that says click here to sign up for this volunteer opportunity. And then what will appear at the bottom, first name, last name, your phone number, and email. This will be sent to the charity. So to bring it up to a higher level, we're brokering volunteer interest to the charity, doing very little collection of information along the way and sort of stepping back once the two have been hooked up. This is not about tracking everyone. We do have some metrics for counting the number of expressions of interest, but we're really not collecting PII or tracking who's saying what. We're just trying to be a matchmaker for interested parties. This is the email acknowledgement that the volunteer would receive. Very printable, very useful. Print it out, take it with you. And thank you.
Questions?
Good afternoon. My name is Tamara Ingwaldson. I'm with the Greater Olympic Peninsula Combined Federal Campaign. And as I'm listening to this presentation and looking through the information, why are we doing something that's redundant? There's already several volunteer match opportunities existing, and so wouldn't it be a better use of efficiencies and existing resources to create a link to the volunteer center databases that are in those various LFCC, CFC areas, that then the potential volunteers could do a search by their zip code / interest area. Thus, we're not reinventing the wheel because there's a ton of existing volunteer center matchmaking opportunities already existing across the country.
Well, interestingly, we did a lot of research beforehand on volunteer websites. And if you look at something like Volunteer Spot, that is really the charity owning a very strong relationship with the volunteers. Scheduling, roles and responsibilities, hour of service, all kinds of things in a very sticky attachment between volunteer and charity. This is different. Federal workers are different. The way we contact them is different. And a light touch of just hooking up volunteers with charities was the goal. And that is not what I found you could do with something like Volunteer Spot. They're different. I was concerned about doing something in the presence of lots of other volunteer sites, but this one has some characteristics that fit with the federal donor and the way we want to interact with them that the other sites do not.
Let me add the second half of that. When you look at uniformity and what it does to get inside of somebody's head, to make them remember, to make them want to use, to make it easy the second time around or third time around, if we allowed everybody to do what they're doing, nothing changes. There's no guarantee that this pilot changes a thing, but it offers a chance to look at uniformity across the federal employee perspective and the charity perspective so that there is a singular way to operate. And if a federal employee is located somewhere else 2 years from now, or if a charity decides 2 years from now that this is actually working for them, there's commonality, there's uniformity, and it's not real expensive to have built. And that was key to this. Our LFCC wasn't going to let us break the bank on this. It's charity money. Can he just yell?
Yeah, I'll just yell. This ain't working. We tried to do a little charitable thing, and we hit some legal hurdles this year. I'm Department of Navy, by the way, and the lawyers were more concerned about us choosing a charity to go work at showed favoritism and it violated, that principle is supposed to be random and all that. Has OPM addressed some of that?
I can't speak for OPM. I can speak from what we reviewed. The idea is to allow a federal employee to self-select the charity of choice. We're not promoting any of them. As a PCFO, we don't care. If you don't want to promote yourself to the millions of potential volunteers or hundreds of thousands of donors, that's up to you. So there is no special promotion. You can't advertise on the site, we're Charity X and come see us. It's simply, you can put 4 events a month onto the site as a charity. As a volunteer, you can screen them all and decide what you want to do. So there is no favoritism. There is no one charity support.
George Gilbert, Nevada Combined Federal Campaign. I think it's a great idea. Our campaigns run September 1st through December 15th, but volunteer opportunities are year-round. Will this be an opportunity for federal employees to volunteer year-round?
That was the plan.
Yeah, it's year-round. The idea is year-round.
Jerry Klayman from the Gateway CFC. I think this is a great idea. I think it expands the functionality of the CFC. It builds it out. And because federal employees are a specific type of donor, we've provided a method for them to give financial resources to charities. That's not the only resource that charities are looking for. They're looking for volunteer resources also. And it does make it is a road in for younger people. I think the fact that there are other opportunities, there are other volunteer databases out there that people can sign up for. Those are big and universal, and that's great. This doesn't work against them, but this does expand the usefulness, the functionality of the CFC. Therefore, I think it's a great idea.
What he said.
One more thing. Keep in mind, this is our ability to reach into and put ourselves in front of the face of the federal worker as opposed to all workers, and it's only CFC-approved charities, which is not the same as another volunteer website. So there's some attributes of the constituent that's different.
Do we have a go-live date on it? Go live for the rest of us? The non-pilot campaigns?
I guess it depends on how well we do in the pilot. So there can't be until we go through the process.
Okay, and I just follow up from the previous session. I don't know if it's fair to cross bounds, but we didn't get a go live on the CARE program. OPM, do you know?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Everything has a date and schedule.
I think he said 2 weeks.